Bye-bye. Bye, buddy. She waved at Diallo and nodded at Lalo, who watched her push her cat around the bend of the house into the dusk. Thank you.
Okay. I find from interviews a lot of authors from the Caribbean and Africa don't like referring to their work as magical realism, because for us it's not exactly magical realism. It's just how we grew up. I mean, we grew up on Tales by Moonlight. It's normal. It's not normal, but it's kind of normal for a monkey to be talking to someone randomly. So for this book, it kind of has like the magical realism elements. So how did you decide what elements to include and how much explanation to provide? Also, how do you handle the tension between the rational and the irrational? Because this little girl is saying some funny
Yeah,
stuff.
that tension is always a delicate thing to handle. I mean, I'm very conscious that I'm writing magical realism. Uh, I'm also conscious that I'm writing social realism because, in the end, it's a social critique, right? But I don't want one element to be lost in the other. So finding the right balance is always very important. I'm not shy, and I don't understand why people are reluctant to call their works magical realism if that's what it is. In Africa, it's a tradition for us, right? So it's a normal thing. And now maybe people say, well, yeah, maybe it's not our thing, but it is, right? Because when you think of the myths of the Gwe, right? And Abdul Karim knows them. He's laughing. Mm. Did they terrorize you when you were a child or something? Yeah, but we may not have seen them, but we heard stories about them and we believed in those stories, right? To the extent that, we would be afraid to go out at night because we believe like some magical dwarf is going to terrorize you or torment you in the night or things like that. We believe they're spirits, we believe they're jinns. We don't see them, but we kind of have interactions, or we believe we have interactions with them. All those things are sort of mythical and sort of magical, and then at the same time, sort of like the fantastical coming into the real, right? And then we want to, I don't understand how we think we can tell our stories and ignore those things. Because for me, the things that shape what we believe are the things that shape what we are, right? And if you grow up with these legends and these myths, then in a way they shape the persons and the people that we've become. So yeah.
Wow. Another thing I found striking is the world building. So we are in Jos, we are in ABJ, but we're not. For me, it felt like some parts of it were zoomed in, and then other parts were zoomed out. It felt cramped, and it also felt large. How did you make that balance between the world there and real time? Because these are real places, not imagined places.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of, I think it's an ambitious book. Whether it succeeded in that ambition is something I don't know. My duty was to write it, and I did. But there's so many elements to the story, right? It's not just this balance between magical and the real, but there's also this historical element to it. So in a way, it can be kind of looked at maybe as a kind of historical fiction, right? But then it's also contemporary. Um, and there are different aspects. So it's not really a love story. It's a story about love, but it's also a story about hate, right? So there are different elements and different things that needed to be balanced somehow. I admit it's a tricky thing to do. I don't know if I did all of it well, but I tried. Yeah. So that's it. So if someone is trying to crucify me for that, good luck.
Lalo, our main lead, he visits various places in the book. Why did we have to go on a journey to different places?
Well, I mean, that's also something that is really important to me, right? The places that he went to. And for me, that's because of the deeper meaning of his reincarnation, if that's what it is. Lalo is not just Lalo. Lalo is us, right? For me, that's how I see him. He's Nigeria. as a whole, as a people, right? And we subject ourselves or are subjected to episodes of violence periodically, right? Sometimes we get tired of living in peace and decide to kill our neighbors because we are like really weird and crazy people sometimes. And then sometimes we are so full of love, right, that we shower our neighbors with love. And then the next time the violence happens, you don't understand how is it that the people who are like eating together and doing all these things together are suddenly killing each other because it doesn't make sense, right? So what this is about is the cyclical nature of that violence, how it keeps going and coming back, right? So Yarima Lalo traveling to Jos, to Kafanchan, to Kano, to Kaduna, and those other places, Maiduguri too, as well, right? It's sort of like putting a pin on those places where we had historical occurrences of this violence that have shaped the outlook of our country today, right? The riots in Kafanchan was very significant. Um, our failure to deal with that riot, the way it's supposed to be dealt with, was what led us to where we are now, right? The riots in Kano were very significant historically, the ones in Jos, the ones in Kaduna, and all of that. So all those places that he ended up visiting, right, to chase and pursue and find out what actually happened to him, that was us in a way going back to those places where we got those things wrong and where we are now. So here you have him at the end of the situation kind of facing something that is coming for him, right? And that is us at the end of that journey. That's where we are, right? We know there's something coming next. We're not sure where it's coming from, right? So that's the whole idea. Yeah.
My favorite part of this novel is the characters because there's a cast of very colorful characters. I have a bias towards Libya and Indo. Now, how did you develop your characters? Did you have like did you outline it like a homicide detective? This one is going to come here, that one is coming, or they just came to you?
No, I think most of them just came when they came. I didn't like really do a profile of each character. I think the character I struggled the most with was Yarima Lalo, right? Because and I kind of thought about why I struggled with his character a lot, and I realized it's because he has like a lot going on, right? He's not sure of what he is, what has happened to him, and all of that. And I think that uncertainty kind of projected itself into how I wrote that character. Um, so I wasn't really sure exactly what kind of person or what kind of character he was going to be at some point. Um, but I did love writing Indo, right? I mean, the moment I got to her, I just felt this exaltation, this freedom, this ecstasy to write, and I felt free. So I enjoyed writing her character a lot, right? Yeah, but for the other characters, they're also very complex. Faiza, I mean, not Faiza, Aziza, right? Aziza was also in a very complicated situation where she has to like make this difficult decision, and she was processing a lot of things that she really hasn't talked about as well. Um, so here she finds this person she could just embark on this journey with, and she isn't sure what that journey meant for her, but for her it was just an escape at first, right? So all of them are sort of in this place where they're trying to figure things out, and it was kind of exciting to kind of go on this journey with them and figure things out with them along the way. So yeah.
Since you finished writing the book, is there any of the characters that is still lingering in your mind?
Yeah, in the
Of course,
I mean,
my
her voice is
I'm
like
not
really
even
powerful, right?
surprised.
Her voice is really powerful, and she's just this person who speaks her mind. She's like, you know, I don't care about what anybody thinks. I'm an old woman who speaks my mind, and that's what it is. And yeah, she's not kind of inhibited by all the inhibitions we put on ourselves and say, well, yeah, I can't speak this way, or I can't say that, or I can't say this. I mean, she had a life, she lived it, and she's not ashamed of it, right? She kind of takes it frontally and is happy with all of that. So yeah, I still kind of hear her voice once in a while.
I'm actually very fascinated with how you write older female characters. Not you. We have the first novel, has it gotten easier to write as older female character become easier to write for
No,
you?
no,
Or
please,
do
no.
you like build on the fantasy?
No, there's no fantasy here. What are you talking about?
You're blushing, sir.
Oh, um, she's 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 just a happy, go-lucky old woman who happens to be part of the character. I don't think like it's a process where I say, oh, I want to write older characters, but I do feel, and this is me being sincere, I do feel like we look at aging as if it's something to be ashamed of, right? Something to be shunned. And when people start aging, you want to like put them away in a closet or somewhere and just not engage with that. And even when you engage with that, you don't want to engage with the fact that they had a life, they had a history before they got to where they are. We just want to like put them in that place. And I feel that in a way is sort of an injustice, and not reflective of the reality of life. So if there's a need for me to write an older character, whether it's a male or a female, and I'm kind of surprised you're not talking about older male characters in the novel, like Karambol, for instance, right?
I
So
mean,
sometimes people want to like focus and say, oh, older women. There are older men in there too, and they're
but
doing
you don't give the same attention to them.
why?
Or is it just me? Am I the problem?
Well, I mean, I don't know. I enjoyed writing Karambol a lot, right? I enjoyed what happened to him, and how that character kind of transitioned from this powerful person to what he became in the end. Um, but I just feel like, yeah, it's necessary once in a while to have people in that generation, because through them we kind of see where we're coming from, right? Through their backstory, through their history, and all of that, and then we come to a place where we see where we are now. So that is important, and that's why this happens. So there's no fantasy, there's no infatuation, there's nothing.
Noted. Wink, wink.
Thank you.
Okay. Did you know the ending of this book before you started? And did it change through different edits?
Yeah, it did. It did. I mean, not two different drafts. Yeah, yeah. I had a different ending at first, and then I thought, yeah, maybe not again, not this time. So I kind of did something with it, and then I kind of did something again with it, till we arrived at where we are today.
I mean, you can share an alternate ending, maybe like next year for like his second year anniversary. We don't mind, do we? We don't mind because I'm very curious about it, and I don't want to be the only one to hear it because I'll still ask you after this.
I think I'm kind of happy at where we left things. I want the audience to kind of run along with the story and imagine whatever endings they want to enjoy for them. But in the end, I just felt like it's important. I haven't dealt with an issue as heavy as this violence and all of that, to kind of give hope, right, for people, and in a way sort of put things in your hand and say, well, you know what? Now you have all of this. What do you do with it? Do you go ahead and do more violence? I decided not to do violence anymore. So I kind of held my hand back, and I decided, well, you know what? It's in your court. Do it as you please. So, yeah. So if you want that second ending, you have to write it.
Oh, wow. Okay. Okay. Um, what do you have authors or works that inspired this book,
Everything I
or
read inspires me. Everything.
none sticks out?
Well, everyone knows that I've always been fascinated by Marquez, because of that shared tradition and history. But Michael Ondaatje, and other writers too. I mean, sometimes you read some books, you don't really like them, but you realize that in a way they're kind of influencing you. That too has happened. So yeah, I have a range of writers that I read growing up and I'm still reading now, and they constantly kind of either reinforce what I've done and kind of tell me, well, maybe you could do better, right? So I'm very open-minded about this. I'm eclectic about my reading choices, but I'm also very aware of where I'm situating my work and what I'm writing about. You know.
Okay. So this book, yeah, it's about painful memories and experiences. We're dealing with grief, but you still find a way to add humor, although dark, in it.
Yeah.
How important is humor for you when telling stories?
Um, Humor is very important, not just in telling stories, but in kind of looking at life generally. And for me too, even if I look too serious all the time, right? I am a very chilled person, I guess. And yeah, the things that people see, and they see all this rage and anger and all of that, and I see the humor in it. I may not write humor as much as I'd like, maybe, because I think there's a lot of serious shit going on, right? But someone said humor is the rubber sword with which you can score points without drawing blood, right? And sometimes there are things you need to say to people, and those things are tough. But if you quote it with humor, it kind of makes sense. The message gets across, right? And for me, the most important thing is getting the message across, not hurting people or hurting people's feelings or sentiments. Yes, sometimes people need tough love, right? You need to like say it the way it is, and you do that. And I think I've done that a lot. But also, there are times where you need to kind of cushion the blow with humor, and if people find it relatable, and that's also a problem with humor. It's very difficult because one, it depends on the person's mood. Two, it depends on how they understand that this is actually meant to be funny, and three, it depends on if they actually find it funny, right? So yeah, but I'm glad you kind of related with that in a way.
Okay. So you have two novels now and you have two short story collections. Do you have a preferred format to share stories?
Yeah,
Or which one is harder?
I've always been a novelist at heart. Right. I've always wanted to write novels. That's always been my fascinating. And I think my two short stories are sort of accidental in a way. The first one, especially, right? I wasn't very deliberate about writing that. Um, Most of them were stories I wrote because I had a reading group I was attending at the time. And every 2 weeks, you needed to read something new. So every 2 weeks, I needed to just write a new story and go and read it. So that was how that first short story came along. The second one, I think I was kind of more deliberate about it because the stories are interconnected, right? So that was sort of planned. But yeah, I'm giving short stories a rest now and focusing on novels and things like that, hopefully. Even though I said that like 10 years ago and then ended up publishing a short story first. Yeah, so, well, we'll see what happens, but preference novels, yes.
Okay. Um, I know a lot of readers have questions, so I would like to open the floor for. Wow. Okay. Is there a mic? Mic. Okay. Okay. Is the microphone coming
There you go.
for the
Thank
live
you.
stream?
Good morning. Um, you people cannot harass me. I have rights in this country. So my question is, what's the origin of your fascination with older women? Because when you write older women, you write them very, very well. Let me finish.
Zara,
Sir,
respect, please.
please.
Akwayara, Ananda.
Akwayara. You write very remarkable older female characters, and then when you compare it to some of the older male characters, they kind of. So I wanted to know: is there like an older woman inside of you, or is there like seriously like an older woman in your life that inspires these strong-willed women? Thank you very much, sir.
I'm always, I'm always fascinated by how people decide to interpret things. And sometimes those interpretations are more a reflection of the interpreter than what is being interpreted.
Wow, 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 wow.
So basically, I'm curious why people focus on certain things and not on others, right? I wrote about a talk, right? And people didn't say, "Oh, are you infatuated with dogs?" Right? I wrote about older men, and the people say, "Oh, are you infatuated by older men?" Nobody asked me that, but I've been asked, like, "Oh, are you infatuated with older women?" Why? No, I am not. The truth is this, right? There are women in my life, a lot, right? My mom has like 8 siblings. 7 of them are women, right? So I grew up with my aunts, and I have a very close relationship with them. I have my wife, I have my sister, I have my daughter, I have women all over me, right? All around me, and all of that. So if I write about women, it's the fact that they exist, right? I don't know why people think like, oh, you are a man, so you shouldn't write about women or something. No, I understand your mischief. Yes.
I want to clarify, please, for public record, before somebody will block me later. Why I asked that question is because it's kind of not common to see well-written, grounded older women characters, especially in books that aren't about romance and desirability. And you write women so well. I've told you this before. You write women with so much compassion. So it stands out. It's not as if it's mischief. It's kind of like, wow, he really gets it. He really understands some of the layers there are to like a woman growing older, and society casting her off as, she's an older woman, she's a grandma. So it's not mischief. I'm actually curious. And it makes sense now that you said you have close relationships with the women in your life. Thank you very much. Nobody should block me. Thank you.
Thank you. So I don't know if that is a question or a compliment, but thank you. Anyway, yeah.
Do we have any more questions? Oh, okay.
There's a
Someone
hand
over
over
there.
there.
Hi, good afternoon, Kaduna. Yes. So this is my first time at Kabafest, and I'm just really excited to be here. So I wrote down my question so that I don't forget it. So is there a significance to your use of a child to represent the collectors? I mean, I found her character deeply interesting, but I'm just curious to know if there's a specific significance behind choosing a child that we might be missing. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that question. Yes, there is. And the reason is simple. Often we kind of talk about it in a superficial way, right? When children are victims of violence, and every crisis you have children being murdered for things they know absolutely nothing about. Their childhood is interrupted, their lives are ended, and they have no understanding of why, right? And I feel like that's a dream that is cut short, a life that is unfulfilled somehow. And I just felt, well, since I'm writing the story, maybe I should give them a different purpose. Right? Kind of bring them back into focus. All the children, as those who would read the book will know, are victims of violence. They're children who have suffered violent, you know, ends and things like that. So this was me kind of giving them power to kind of play a role, right, in a situation where they happen to be the ones who kind of help people transition, and they do it in a very nice and calm way to kind of reflect that innocence that they have, that innocence that was cut short from whatever violence we inflicted on them. So that is the purpose. That is the reason why they exist.
Any other questions? Okay. I'm guessing. Okay. So, oh, oh,
Okay, stand up. Bless us with your beauty. Stand up. Hello, everyone. So my question is, for Ture, there was a tension between her and Yarima when they first met. So, like, you didn't explore that more. Did she recognize him? Because it felt like she knew who he was even before, like when they were sitting in her restaurant. It felt like she knew who he was, so she was a bit shocked to like see him. But then you didn't explore that, and then we assume she died. So
spoilers, spoilers. You're dropping
sorry. So
spoilers.
I'm assuming everybody has read it.
No.
Sorry. Sorry.
I apologize on her behalf.
Is it true that I did not explore that? Um, I think I kind of did, right? I don't know. People who read the book would kind of figure out that in a way yeah. I mean, he never said who he was, right? But the insinuations are there. And I trusted my readers to be intelligent enough to understand that this is the insinuation and that is what. So maybe in a way, I kind of didn't make that so obvious because I expected people to figure it out. Yeah, but I think it's sort of explored.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think so too.
I mean, in the end, right? She took the decision she took because she knew who he was. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Before any other hand comes up. Oh, oh, okay. The mic.
Give my brother the mic.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Usman Hayatu. So, Abubakar, mine is not really a question. It's more of an acknowledgement and solidarity. Whatever they want to say, let them say it. As someone who was married to Her late Sovereign Majesty, the Queen, at 97, I understand you with old woman. So, I stand solidly in solidarity with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Usman. Allah karama lafiya.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Zainab Ilyas Bobi. The question I have for you is, despite the obsession of Indo with what happened to her, this obsession of having them pay for, I can't remember his name exactly, so having them pay for what he did to her, him rather, but you didn't give her that, although you gave the readers that, but you didn't give her that. So I don't know why you wrote it that way. And also, the second question, sorry, please. I know you gave a concept that the reason why you use roundabout and also places that is like a place where people meet, a lot of people meet. But I don't know why exactly did you use the beggar roundabout, because whenever I pass through there, I used to think and then just sometimes I kind of imagine it happening there. I don't know why you use that place to be exact.
All right, thank you. I hope I got her questions right. The first one is about what Lalo decided to do, right? So I have an analogy for you. Have you been to the bookstore? Have you been to a bookstore to buy one book and ended up buying 5 or 6? Yeah. So sometimes you go to a place with one intention to do something, but then you get there and the context changes, right? So when he set out from home, he had one singular ambition. And then when he went to all those different places, he saw the situation and he realized, well, what I wanted to do would be meaningless in the end, right? So the context determined the decisions that he took. So in the end, everything that we do, even if we have clear ideas of what we're going to do, it's a context that matters that shapes the final outcome of that. I hope that kind of answers your question. The second question is about the roundabouts. Yeah, so for me, those were kind of fundamentals because there are places where people meet. There are places of convergence, right? And I just wanted to show that it's a process of transitioning, right? So people come to roundabouts because they're going somewhere else. That's not their final destination, right? So the children gathering at the roundabouts to kind of set those people off is showing that, yes, we're coming here to pass on to somewhere else. And everyone is basically in a state of transition because we're going from one place to another. At the same time, I also want to depict that, we think life is very serious, and it is, right? But at the same time, there are things you give your life for, and you die, and then the world continues as if nothing happened, right? So no matter how self-absorbed you are or how important you think you are, the moment you fall and die, like, nothing will change, right? The sun is not going to fall out of the sky or something or the other. Yeah, it may fall figuratively for the people around you who know you, but everyone else continues with their business. So situating that event at that particular point in time or that space is also show that, yeah, life continues for those who are here, and they don't even know that this thing is happening around them.
Right. Okay. There's there's someone there. He's right there.
My name is Sidi, and I want to say, Abubakar, thank you very much for this book. I remember after reading this book, I was so astonished because it stood out. It's a very remarkable book. It held me spellbound, and I remember calling you and I spoke with you for over an hour, telling you how beautiful I found the book. And so after reading, I began to think, and Lalo, yes. I think most readers I've interacted with tend to forget that Lalo was a soldier and he suffered trauma. I think the book is so beautifully written that most readers are carried away with the adventures, the reincarnation, and all that. But then I began to think, this is someone who encountered the negative consequences of warfare. This is somebody who is traumatized. So as an alternative reading, I began to think, what if Lalo actually did not reincarnate? That because I was privileged, or rather I'm privileged to meet people who have gone into combat and they come back with PTSD and all that. You see some of them intimately revealing to you that the people they have killed come to them, that they interact with them. You see some of them talking to themselves and all that. So it's a very difficult and tough situation to be in. So as I was saying earlier, as an alternative reading, what if Lalo did not reincarnate? What if this is someone who has suffered so much trauma and he's trying to make sense of this trauma? And that is why he began to embark on this journey to rediscover himself. What do you have to say to that, sir?
That's fascinating. That's very fascinating. But you understand this from the context of a brilliant writer who is trying to interpret your work, and that's fascinating. For those who don't know, Umar Sidi is the author of a new book that's coming out, The Incredible Dreams of Garba Dacascos, and I'm recommending that because it's fascinating. I had the pleasure and honor of reading it and blobbing it. And I can assure you, you have never read anything like that. So that is coming from me. So to go back to his poser, because that is not a question, right? Yarima Lalo is deliberate about refusing to address the fact that he was in the military, the fact that he was in combat, and that the fact that he had been traumatized. He simply refused to engage with that. Several times he was asked questions and he just kind of avoided it completely, right? And in his travels, there was one place he didn't go to, and maybe because he didn't really have anything to go there to do, because he was also avoiding that place, and that was the Northeast, right? And later we see that even though he seems very docile and very averse to violence, he hates violence, right? But we also see that he's very competent at dishing it when it's necessary. And then we understand that, okay, this is coming from someplace, somewhere, right? This part of him that he really didn't want to exist anymore. So that is an alternative interpretation, and I'm fascinated to talk to you about it some more. Thank you.
Sorry, there's a lady at the back.
Thank you. So I don't think today should be about questions alone. I just wanted to say something about Abubakar's characters. And this is me looking at them as support. I feel like what you do with these fictional characters is something that is only possible with reality. The way that they are complex, the way that you are able to capture the essence of them as humans. We can see the side of them that are not so likable, and we can see the side of them that are uniquely amazing. So I just wanted to say that I love how the characters make me feel. I love that I feel like I can just stretch my hands into the pages and touch them. There's something real about them, and I want to appreciate you for that.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Is there time?
You don't
Okay.
have any more time.
We don't have any more time.
I'm
Sorry. You can have a mini discussion with him when you go to the bookstore and get a copy and get it signed. Yeah? All right.
Give it up for Abubakar